Hi there, my name is Fiona Stewart. I work for Diabetes UK and I am the community fundraiser for the West of
My
Scotland.
name's Colin Rodger, and I'm one of the founding members of Pearl Jam Scotland and Sounds of Seattle.
And my name is Martin Higgins, and I'm the other founder of Pearl Jam Scotland and Sounds of Seattle.
If you can take us through your journey of the diabetes, living with diabetes, and if any family members have got diabetes.
Yeah, I'll start with that. My son Lewis was diagnosed about 9 years ago now, nearly 10. He took very unwell over the course of a weekend and was rushed into hospital, at which point we find out he was type 1 diabetic. And we and he have been living with that for the past 9 years. It's been a massive learning curve for everyone. It's a condition that affects not only the person with it, but the whole family has to adjust to that. And he was only at school at the time, so the school had to put things in place, and things have changed forevermore after that. And we are now doing what we do to try and find a cure, but a lot of the money we've raised so far is going towards the technology, which helps immensely. So Lewis is now be 19 this year, so he's an adult living his life. So the technology is more welcome now than ever. But that's my experience of diabetes. My sister-in-law is also diabetic, and the drummer of the band that I'm in is diabetic as well. So yeah, it's touched kind of all corners of my life.
About 6 years ago, my godson Max was diagnosed type 1 diabetic. And just coincidentally at that time, I had just met Colin through a separate party that we were organising, or I was organising, sorry. And Colin approached me and asked if I would jump into bed with him and help him fundraise for Diabetes UK. And I said yes because my godson had been newly diagnosed with the disease.
So what diabetes actually is, it's a series and very complex condition where there's too much glucose in the blood because the body can't use it properly. And without support to manage it, it can actually, both type 1 and type 2, there's two different types of diabetes, can lead to quite devastating complications. So people with type 1 diabetes can't produce insulin. And what insulin is, a hormone, that chemical made in your blood that actually helps you manage your blood sugar levels. So these people have to take insulin on board. Unfortunately, people living with type 1 can't actually live without insulin, without injecting or taking insulin on. They would actually not be able to survive, which makes it clear what a critical illness this or condition this can actually be. So what actually somebody living with diabetes is, they'll have to check their blood sugars periodically throughout the day. Every decision they make, whether it's exercising, eating, going for a walk, what they eat has to be calculated and looked at, and then they have to take the appropriate amount of insulin on board to deal with their blood sugar. So you basically become your own pancreas in a nutshell.
Living with it on a day-to-day basis, certainly for the past 9 years, we're still looking after Lewis in a way because he's a teenager now. His life has changed, but it's all about control, in a good way. By default, Lewis kind of has to live a healthy lifestyle. He has to be active. He needs to watch what he's eating. But on the day-to-day basis, you're making sure that he has the right amount of carbs for breakfast. So, you're having orange juice or cereal or something which has to be measured, that has to be, the insulin is then worked out for what the carbs that you're eating. So you have a ratio of, which can change from, different times for meals. Like he'll have less insulin in the morning, he'll have more at night because he's been more active through the day. But the day-to-day impact for Lewis is, he can't, like you or I, he can't just decide, oh, I'm going to have a packet of sweets or a bag of crisps. Everything has to be thought about and measured and insulin taken on board. So that's the kind of day-to-day. You're just dealing with each mealtime, with each snack, with each activity. There's a lot of thought has to go into it beforehand, whereas you and I just automatically go through our day, eat what we want, do what we want. But for diabetics and type 2, you need to put a lot of forethought into what you're doing.
Colin, you mentioned, sorry to jump in, you mentioned technology. Do you want to say a wee bit about what that technology is and how that is helping?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned my sister-in-law, when she was first diagnosed, she would have been 15, which was about 15, 16 years ago. And back then it was a vial of insulin. So you could see in the hospitals or in a program, they're holding a vial, they're putting a needle into it and drawing down the insulin. So that's how hers was administered back then. When Lewis was diagnosed 9 years ago, it was the pens. So it's like you put a vial of insulin into a pen and you dial in how much you need, and you press it and it's exact, and you don't need to be tapping bubbles out of syringes and things like that. So even just that progress was great. In recent years, he's now using the Libre sensor. So that's about a 10 pence piece size bit of plastic that goes in your arm here, and it talks to his phone and it monitors his blood glucose in that way. So prior to that, he was having to prick his fingers with a lancet, they call it, a needle each day, and produce blood, put it onto a strip and put it into a testing machine, and that would tell him what his blood glucose levels were. But you had to do that at certain intervals of the day, when you were eating, when you were exercising. But with this sensor, your phone has a constant feed, and you can see exactly what your blood glucose is. So he did have that a while back, but he didn't like it when he was younger because he thought, he was going to bang his arm off things and it would hurt. As he's got older, he's accepted it, and now he's looking at other types of the pumps and the closed loop systems, the hybrid systems. So he's looking at those, and again, that just gives better control and better management.
How much of a concern is it to someone if they're living with diabetes comparable to the person who's not living with diabetes then? Because they have to eat carefully and everything with more caution. So how much of a concern is it?
I think it depends on the individual. Like when Lewis was younger, we had control of what he was doing. Yeah, he would sneak a packet of sweets here and the packet of crisps there. Now that he's older, he's still under our roof. He's classed as an adult, so we can't exert as much control over him as we would like. He's drinking, he's going out to late at night, he's sleeping in the morning and things like that. So it's a concern for us at this stage. But when he was younger, it was more of a concern for him because he felt different. He couldn't do the same things that his friends were doing, and there still is a degree of that. So the person living with it, and he had help psychologically, at the start. The people in the diabetes team in Glasgow, they referred them to a child psychologist who took him through, understanding it all, and it really helped him. But he has good days and bad days. There's days that he just maybe have a meltdown at the kitchen because he just feels bad about it, and he can't do again what his friends are doing, or he just wants to live his life normally. Unfortunately, he can't until they find a cure. And again, that's why we're doing what we're doing.
What are your words of advice to take into account if they want to stay proactive and get plenty of exercise? What would you say to them?
It's an individual choice. At the end of the day, it's one of these things that you either take everything on board and take the advice, or you don't. You can't impose that on people. Unfortunately, you can give them all the directions and all the information and all the technology. Ask people to be healthy, but at the end of the day, how many of us are healthy, profess to be, but we have our little moments where we slip and, we take a week off things and that sort of thing. So yeah, if everybody can watch their carb intake, watch their sugar intake, watch what they're doing, but ultimately, type 1 is a genetic disorder. It's there's a misconception, that you eat too much sugar or you eat too much sweets or things like that you'll end up diabetic. In the extreme, yeah, you can end up type 2 but that's down to weight and so on and so forth. But type 1 is genetic, unfortunately. You've got the gene. Once they find out how that gene is activated and people end up type 1, then we'll have a cure. But until then, yeah, everybody should live as healthy a lifestyle as possible, regardless of type 1, type 2, or anything. As Fiona was kind of saying there, that the type 1, there's misconceptions about that. There's misconceptions about type 2, but I think to turn that back, it would be really that, everyone should know all the facts about diabetes, not just one. If you're affected by it, you need to know everything. Type 1, it's something that, as Fiona says, is autoimmune, down to genetics sometimes. So there's not really much you can do to avoid that until they find a cure. Type 2, as Fiona was starting to go into, through healthy lifestyle, that can be avoided, but not always. But yeah, I wouldn't say there's just one fact. People should know all the facts.
How widespread is diabetes in the UK? And can you tell us some of the signs and symptoms?
According to our stats, there are nearly 4.4 million people living with a diagnosis of diabetes in the UK. About 90% of the cases are type 2, about 8% are type 1, and other forms of the condition make up the other 2%. So we estimate also that 1 in 9 people are estimated to be living with pre-diabetes and at risk of developing type 2. So there's a huge number of people living with the condition and also at risk. So it's the role of the charity to raise awareness about that and provide support. And all the amazing work that Colin and Marty have been doing over 10 years now. They've raised over £100,000 for the cause, and we could not be doing what we do without what Colin and Marty have been doing. Most common symptoms, we talk about them in terms of the 4 T's. So toilet, you sort of feel the need to go to the toilet a lot more, especially at night time, being thirsty, being tired, tireder than usual, and thinner. So if you start to sort of recognise that you're losing weight and putting those all 4 together, we would encourage you to go and speak to a health specialist and see your GP.
Why is it a huge factor in Asian communities or like in the minority background? How come it's so much highly in that as well?
So type 2 diabetes is really complex, and there are different elements that can increase your risk, one of which is family history, one of which is ethnicity, also deprivation. Our research tells us that kind of plays into it, but we still don't absolutely know, which is why, you know, some of the funds that our fundraisers raise, like Colin and Marty, goes into research so that, you know, the scientists can try and get to the bottom of type 1 and 2. Go online, visit diabetes.org.uk.
Fantastic.
You can find out details about our social media handles. We've got lots of information on the website, and there's also a helpline. So there's different ways that people can get in touch.
If people want to get in contact with us, which we are Sounds of Seattle through Facebook and Pearl Jam Scotland through Facebook, we'll also share updates on breakthrough research when it happens, just to keep people engaged in what we do and keep people up to date in what their money actually does. So, you know, for a small two-man operation, we've now got 3,500 people following us online, and that reach takes us from Seattle to Auckland around the world. It's a fantastic community. Everybody that is on our pages with us is committed to fundraising, and they all enable us to do these type of things and have some real fun as we raise money for a very, very serious disease.
My name is Julie Cameron, and I'm the Associate Director within the Mental Health Foundation. So we are an organisation who is focused on the prevention of mental health problems, and that means that we try and work to ensure that people have the best conditions to enable them to thrive in their lives. So that involves working with policy, working in research, and also doing more programmatic work to ensure that we best understand the relationship between mental health and different things in people's lives. And also, as I say, so that we can really let people know what will help to improve their mental health or to prevent mental health problems starting in the first place.
My name is Heather Lewis. I work at the Mental Health Foundation. I manage various projects, particularly with children and young people, a lot of which are through sport. So working with sporting organisations to equip them and cheerlead and support them as they help to support people's mental health.
मेरा नाम है सैयद अजहर अली शाह बुखारी. I'm President Pakistan Cycling Federation and also President South Asian Cycling Federation. मैं पहले था अपने सूबे का जनरल सेक्रेटरी, फिर मैं सूबे का KPK का प्रेसिडेंट बना. उधर मैंने 10 साल प्रेसिडेंटशिप की और कुछ 10 साल मैंने जो है ना वो किया, जनरल सेक्रेटरी रहा हूँ. उसके बाद मैं फेडरेशन में था. फेडरेशन में एसोसिएट सेक्रेटरी, वाइस प्रेसिडेंट, इस लेवल्स पर काम करता रहा. लेकिन 2011 में जब 12 में हमारे इलेक्शन हुए तो उसमें मुझे इलेक्ट किया गया एज ए जनरल सेक्रेटरी पाकिस्तान साइकिलिंग फेडरेशन. वहाँ पे मैंने फेडरेशन में 8 साल गुजारे, 2 टर्नओवर गुजारे. तो फिर हमें वो सीट छोड़नी पड़ी, तो उन्होंने मुझे प्रेसिडेंट इलेक्ट कर दिया तमाम कैबिनेट में.